One of the more complicated questions to answer in job interviews are questions around failure. Tell me about the time when you failed. Do you ever fail? Or tell me about the time when you failed to deliver something on time. And recently I role-played with someone for a job interview. It was for a sales account representative role. And they answered this question with a story that was basically, yes, they did fail to deliver something on time within the originally scheduled deadline. However, because of their relationship with the customer, they were able to obtain an extension, and during that 2-week extension, they actually delivered a great ad in this example, and the ad went on to be successfully published, and it was a great success. Right, so basically what the candidate did was to spin this failure, like the failure to deliver something on time, into a great success, selling themselves on their ability to have, to build a relationship with the customer and to eventually do something successful. Right, on the reasoning that on a job interview, sell on your successes. Okay, and the question is this a good idea or not? And the reason why I'm shooting this video is because I actually took a bit of time to think about this, and I actually believe it's not a good idea to spin failure questions in job interviews. And I'd like to give you a little bit of explanation as to why this is maybe no longer such a great idea. So usually in a job interview, you want to sell yourself on your strength, on your ability to deliver success in the customer, right? And if someone asks you for a time when you had a challenging project, yes, you could talk about the challenging project that speaks to your ability to deliver in challenging circumstances. But if someone asks you directly, hey, tell me about the time when you failed, then I believe the better approach is to really answer the question of the time when you actually failed. And this isn't as if, if you fail, you're not the best candidate, but the way you'd sell yourself using this failure story would be through its learnings. Okay, so long story short, selling yourself in job interviews on failure questions using the learnings. Okay, and more on this a bit later. But why is it so dangerous? In the previously mentioned example, why is it so dangerous that you spin that failure into actually a great success story? The problem with that answer, and actually it took me a while to figure things out. The problem with this answer it doesn't showcase on what the interviewer is actually asking for, that is your ability to deal with shortcomings, but rather on something else, something of being able to find workarounds, eventually not taking enough ownership on these things, or not showing enough self-awareness, for that project, or ownership, or taking responsibility. Not to speak that, if you present it in a way such as a great success, you no longer have time to speak about the learnings, and most people will not talk about learnings when, they try to spin it this way, right? So this is why I would definitely recommend you to genuinely use a story that is a failure, right? And even further, it's hugely important that you spend 50% of the time, right? Half of your answer should be focused on the learnings, how you grew from that experience, because that's the core thing in that given in that story, in what you're supposed to be selling yourself on. So, for example, here, for the aforementioned example, one way to structure the answer would be that I once had a tight deadline for a major ad campaign. I underestimated the time needed for the specific task, and this led to a delay of a number of days. I immediately contacted the client, honestly explained the situation, and outlined a revised timeline. I also proposed, something else. They understood the situation and agreed to the extension. While the delay was frustrating, it gave me the opportunity to do some specific improvements, and the final campaign was ultimately very successful, exceeding expectations in whatever metric, right? From this experience, I learned the importance of some specific lessons, and I now use this technique to ensure I have a realistic timeline and proactively manage potential delays. Right, so notice here how half of this answer showcases on how you grew from that experience, how that experience made you a better candidate for the role that you're applying for, because the definition of behavioral interview is that they look at your past experiences so they can predict your future performance on the job. Whereas if you don't learn from past experiences, from past mistakes, from past failures in these examples, chances are you won't learn from other experience in the future. Right? So remember here, the goal is to show that you learn from your mistakes and not to paint yourself as someone who always gets their way. Right? Focus on the learning and growth, not just the positive outcome. All right, so I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.